do the word for word first. Please repeat after me. Tasmai unto Lord Brahma. Bhavan, your lordship. Hayashiraha, having the head and neck of a horse. Tanuvam, the incarnation. He, indeed. Bibrat, accepting. Veda Druho, two demons who were against the Vedic principles. Ati Balo, extremely powerful. Madhu Kaitaba Akhyo, known as Madhu and Kaitaba. Hatva, killing. Anayat, delivered. Shruti Ganan, all the different Vedas. Cha, and. Rajaha Tamaha Cha, by representing the modes of passion and ignorance. Sattvam, pure transcendental goodness. Tava, your. Priyatamam, most dear. Tanum, form, as Hayagriva. Amananti, they honor. Tasmai bhavan hayashiras tanuvam hibridbhad. Vedha druhav atibalo madhukaita bhakyo. Hatva nayachruti ganamascha rajastamascha. Sattvam tava priyatamam tanum amananti. Tasmai bhavan hayashiras tanuvam bibrad. Vedha druhav atibalo madhukaita bhakyo. Hatva nayachruti ganamscha rajastamascha. Sattvam tava priyatamam tanum amananti. Tasmai bhavan hayashiras tanuvam hi bibrad. Vedha druhav atibalo madhukaita bhakyo. Hatva nayat shruti ganamscha rajastamascha. Sattvam tava priyatamam tanum amananti. Tasmai bhavan hayashiras. Tamascha. Sattvam tava priyatamam tamonamananti. Anyone else like to read? Tasmai bhavan hayashiras tanuvam hi bibrad. Veda druhavati balo madhukaita bhakya. Hatvanaya shruti ganam cha rajastamascha. Satvam tava priyatamam tanuma mananti. Anyone else? Tasmai bhavan hayashiras tanuvam hi bibrad. Veda druhavati balo madhukaita bhakyo. Hatvanaya shruti ganam cha rajastamascha. Satvam tava priyatamam tanumamananti. Translation. My dear Lord, when you appeared as Hayagriva with the head of a horse, you killed two demons known as Madhu and Kaitabha, who were full of the modes of passion and ignorance. Then you delivered the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma. For this reason, all the great saints accept your form as transcendental, untinged by material qualities. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his transcendental form, is always ready to give protection to his devotees. As mentioned herein, the Lord in the form of Hayagriva killed two demons named Madhu and Kaitaba when they attacked Lord Brahma. Modern demons think that there was no life in the beginning of creation, but from Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that the first living creature created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead was Lord Brahma, who is full of Vedic understanding. Unfortunately, those entrusted with distributing Vedic knowledge, such as the devotees engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness, may sometimes be attacked by demons, but they must rest assured that demoniac attacks will not be able to harm them, for the Lord is always prepared to give them protection. The Vedas provide the knowledge by which we can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedescha sarver aham eva vedyaha. The devotees of the Lord are always ready to spread knowledge by which one may understand the Lord through Krishna consciousness. But the demons, being unable to understand the Supreme Lord, are full of ignorance and passion. Thus, the Lord, whose form is transcendental, is always ready to kill the demons. By culturing the mode of goodness, one can understand the position of the transcendental Lord and how the Lord is always prepared to remove obstacles on the path of understanding him. In summary, when the Lord incarnates, he appears in his original transcendental form. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4.7, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharatah abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shrijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. It is simply foolish to think of the Lord as being originally impersonal, but accepting a material body when he appears as a personal incarnation. Whenever the Lord appears, he appears in his original transcendental form, which is spiritual and blissful. But unintelligent men, such as the Mayavadis, cannot understand the transcendental form of the Lord, and therefore the Lord chastises them by saying, Avajananti mam mudha manushrim tanum ashritam. Fools deride me when I descend in human form. Whenever the Lord appears, whether as a fish, what is the fish called? Tortoise, hog, or any other form, one should understand that he maintains his transcendental position and that his only business, as stated here, is hatva, to kill the demons. The Lord appears in order to protect the demons and I'm sorry. The Lord appears in order to protect the devotees and kill the demons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. Since the demons are always ready to oppose Vedic civilization, they are sure to be killed by the transcendental form of the Lord. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे There's a beautiful prayer. I think it's composed by Raghunath Das Goswami. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it goes like this if I can remember it. Namashestam manamapi sachiputra matara swarupam rupam tasyagraja urupurim mathurim goshtavatim radha kundam girivaram aho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Tam Natosmi. I heard this prayer, I think for the first time. There was a devotee who was known as a very powerful Kirtaniya, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He just passed away this year, Vakeshwar Pandit Prabhu. In many ways, very empowered. In other ways, also, like all of us, struggling. But I heard this prayer. He would chant this prayer before Guru Puja. But in essence, this prayer is saying it's a prayer of gratitude to our spiritual teachers, saying how wonderful it is that by the mercy, not by any qualification of my own, but by the mercy, by the grace, by the transcendental gift of our teachers, we have access to Giriraj, Govardhan, we have access to Radha Kund and Shama Kund, we have access to the woods and groves of Vrindavan Dham. Ultimately, we have access to a relationship with the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Madhav. All of this is just possible through the grace of Guru. So sometimes we recite these prayers and it's a little bit theoretical, but I can honestly say in this moment, I'm feeling very much the import of that because it's beyond amazing to try to speak something at the feet of Giriraj. And I'm very much feeling this as the undeserved but very enthusiastically received gift of my own teachers, particularly His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and so many wonderful teachers in the form of all of you residents of Govardhan Eco Village. So thank you for this opportunity to be here in such a special place, most special place, Govardhan Radhakund. It's just absolutely amazing. So, um, Srila Prabhupada in this purport of this verse speaks very enthusiastically about the mission of the Lord as being hatva, to kill. So for those who have a Kshatriya spirit and you're expecting a class on the Lord killing demons, I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but we will not be speaking about that so much this morning. But instead, I want to reflect a little bit. There's one line in this purport that I was very struck by, and I wanted to have some discussion, and maybe we can make it a little interactive. But I wanted to have some discussion on one way we can understand and try to practice in our own lives this not so often discussed pastime of the Lord as Hayagriva killing these two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba. So, as you can see, I think just about almost everyone here has walked through the Vrindavan forest and you see the different depictions of the Leelas of the Lord and the killing of so many demons. And I'm so grateful that whoever was writing the descriptions has also drawn from, I believe, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Of course, these are historical realities. We believe as Gaudiya Vaishnavas that this is not just a story, but these pastimes actually happened and are happening, continuously happening. And at the same time, our acharyas, such as Bhaktivinoda Thakur and others, reflect on that the killing of these demons also has great lessons to teach us symbolically, metaphorically. So just like Putana, I think Putana is the first demon that's killed, demoness. So Putana, what lesson can we learn from the killing of Putana? Does anyone remember? You can just raise your hand and say if you remember. What does Putana represent for us? The false guru and the tendency, perhaps, to accept false teachers and also to pose as false teachers. So that kind of duplicity, that kind of, right? Putana comes in one form, but her intention is something else. So like that, there's so many um, symbolic meanings to the different demons that are slain by Krishna. Um, Trinavarta is, the way I remember it is it's the tendency to become puffed up, especially by academic learning. So I work in a university, so that's a good one for me to meditate on. So like that, we can actually meditate on all the killings of the slaying of these demons. We can meditate in a very personal way that what is the lesson that Krishna wants to teach me in this moment from that. So similarly in this pastime, this form, Hayagriv, with the wonderful head of a horse. The Lord takes this form and he slays these demons. And as we learn in the purport, actually in the verse itself, what do these demons represent? Does anyone remember from when we were reciting? Are anarthas, but okay, true. But very specifically, these two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba, they represent two very specific things, Prabhuji. Rajaguna and Tamaguna. So two of the gunas. Rajguna and Tamaguna. That's what it says specifically in the verse. Actually, in the translation, Srila Prabhupada says they were full of the modes of passion and ignorance. But another way, so that's correct, obviously, that's correct. Another way we could actually translate this is that they are the personification of the Raja. So they're full of those qualities, but they're actually also, we can say that they represent Rajas and Tamas, these two gunas. And in this verse, another way of also understanding this verse is that in the form of Hayagriva, the Lord represents pure sattva, Vishuddha sattva, and is very pleased by sattva guna. So there's a framing that's being made in this verse and elsewhere in our Shastra that these three gunas, they're all three are there, they're all part of Prakriti, they make up Prakriti. We're There's no one in all of Prakriti that is not touched by all three in some way. And at the same time, one tends to always dominate. So in this framework, there are three gunas, but there's definitely a hierarchy, right? They're not all created equal. Sometimes in the West, especially, I have students who are like when they learn about the gunas, they want to say, no, but it should be balanced, all three. perfect balance. So it's true, we believe in a sort of a balance, but it's not that all three are equal or that all three are uh they're all that we need all of them in equal measure, right? There's definitely a hierarchy, and here we see that generally when it comes to knowledge, rajas and tamas have the potential to steal away knowledge, just like Madhu and Kaitaba stole the Vedas. And the Lord has to come as Hayagriv to restore that. And so, in a way, we can understand in a symbolic representation that to prevent the disturbance of and the degradation of knowledge, we need sattva. We need sattva gun. In the purport, there's just one sentence, but it's such a powerful sentence. Srila Prabhupada writes, by culturing the mode of goodness, one can understand the position of the transcendental Lord and how the Lord is always prepared to remove all obstacles on the path of understanding him. I'll read it again. I can't compete with this. They're Dhamvasis. I'm a visitor. But I'll read it again. By culturing the mode of goodness, one can understand the position of the transcendental Lord and how the Lord is always prepared to remove all obstacles on the path of understanding him. So, two times in the sentence, this word understand comes. So, there's some relationship between the mode of goodness, sattva guna, and notice this is not, Prabhupada doesn't say transcendental, supreme. He says mode of goodness. By culturing the mode of goodness, sattva guna, there's some relationship between that and understanding the Lord. So, for the remainder of our time together this morning, I wanted to have a little discussion on this question of do we actually need the mode of goodness? Fine, for preaching, for sharing outside, for encouraging others, for uplifting others. Okay. We explain about the modes, we encourage people to come to the mode of goodness. Sometimes we even talk like this. Oh, he's not a devotee, but he's mode of goodness, right? And prize, like some what is it? Semifinals. It's semifinals. Still good. Still we should appreciate. But it's like a less than, isn't it? But what about for devotees? So this is Bhagavatam class, so it's a little bit more, and that too at Govardhan, at in Radha Kund on the steps of Radha Kund. So this is like insider talk. So as insiders, really, do we need mode of goodness? Aren't we supposed to be transcendental to all these modes? Isn't that why we join Krishna consciousness? To transcend all the modes. And transcending the modes doesn't just mean transcending rajas and tamas, right? It means transcending sattva also. We read constantly, we hear constantly, right? The when if we're talking about the modes of material nature, it's all three of them, including sattva, right? What is that very foundational shlok of the Gita, right? Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha uh, ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. That deluded by all three, I'm paraphrasing a little bit just to make a point, deluded by all three modes, including sattva, the conditioned soul, bewildered by this false ego, thinks, I am the doer. Kartaham iti manyate. He's thinking, Kartaham, I am the doer. This is a problem. This is a big problem. So shouldn't we just get rid of all the modes? Why do we have to bother with mode of goodness? Sounds good? Get rid of modes. Transcend the modes. Yes? So maybe we can talk a little bit about what is so bad about the mode of goodness. That was supposed to be a joke, but we call it mode of goodness. What's so bad about it? Why should we we'll first discuss that, then we'll see the other side. Because if like me, some of you are uncomfortable with this idea that devotees don't have to worry about mode of goodness, I'm uncomfortable with that idea. I don't think that's a very good idea. I think the history of our movement has shown funny things happen when we are not paying attention to motive goodness. So we'll get there. But for now, let's set up, we'll do like a Purva Paksha kind of thing. Let's set up what are some of the arguments that devotees give for why we should not spend our time cultivating motive goodness. That was just okay. Does anyone have just so I think probably the number one argument is that you become complacent. Motive goodness is very nice. And it's easy to think, okay, I've now come to this point. Nice life, everything's peaceful, right? What are the qualities that go along with sattva gunas? Generally, it's peacefulness, clarity, calm, still, very nice. But that can be dangerous because, and this is a really nice word, complacency. Can we just give, Prabhu, can you give like a just short definition of the word complacency for those who may not be so familiar? What does it mean to be complacent? Beautifully said. Complacent, simple definition, you become attached to your comfort. You become attached to your present situation. His Holiness S.B. Keshav Maharaj, he speaks really wonderfully about that we need to be comfortable with discomfort to prevent complacencies, right? So this is sattva gun. That's one big danger of sattva gun, that we get complacent. Anything, any others? What are some other issues with sattva gun? Prabhuji.
Somebody become so much seva, they become crazy.
Crazy or lazy?
Yeah, both.
Both.
Both. If somebody is saying sadhana, okay, I to do, let me establish myself and sattva. Sometimes they become lazy and no, we have to do so much seva. They get into passion. They become crazy.
So sattva can make us lazy and rajas can make us crazy.
Crazy. We have to balance.
And tamas makes us hazy. I don't
I
know.
guess, yeah.
Just we had to complete it, right? So that's similar, right? Complacency can degrade even further into just laziness, right? Sattva and tamas are very similar. It's actually very interesting if you look at, especially in yoga philosophy. Um, we don't talk about it so much, but it's interesting. Rajas, you can usually tell the difference, but superficially, sattva and tamas can both appear to be sometimes very similar in that, right? Rajas is a lot of activity, but both sattva and tamas are more stationary. And so, just to add to this point, right? Sometimes lazy can become hazy and back and forth, right? Because so there's also that danger that in the name of sattva, we may not even actually be sattvic. We may actually be maybe slipping into tamas. So better a little rajas and then just transcend the whole mess. Um, other other arguments against sattva, make the case against sattva. So again, kind of similar, but maybe a little bit more fine tuned. That sattva can also kind of condition us um, to not really have like purpose and to have that like fire to go out, right? It's just like I'm fine, you're fine, we're all fine, everything's good, right? But we're living in the material world. We should have some sense of no, everything is not good. There needs to be some sense of urgency, some sense of not just for ourselves, but to help and save others, right? Preachers generally don't like so much this sattvic idea that no, we have to go out and marathon. No, I'm not. I'm not speaking against the marathon. Please don't make a clip and put it on online. And um, right, but there's yes, Prabhu.
There is no possibility of complete God realization in Sattva Guna. As is evident from the first story in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nara the boy, he was attached to Sattva and therefore he lost vision of the Supreme Lord. That was like kind of contamination that was remnant in him.
Yeah. Sattva is actually, in that sense, if you compare it to the actual objective, the actual goal, it's a contamination. And it's such a tricky contamination because it can actually fool us if we're not careful into thinking, oh, okay, I'm very close. I must have gotten, but actually no. So we sometimes they say, right, that like um the there's a very old-fashioned English word, penultimate. So there's ultimate. Penultimate means that which comes right before the ultimate. So the tendency is to mistake the penultimate for the ultimate. And you think, oh, okay, this is it. I've arrived. But actually, that's not full God realization is not possible in sattva because sattva is still a material mode. Sometimes an analogy is given, the analogy of the window. That tamas, so imagine you're inside of a house, inside of a structure, and you want to go outside. You want to experience outside, like we're experiencing such a nice atmosphere outside. So you're inside. So, like if you stay in like a nice hotel, one of the features that they sell is it's called sleep. If you want to get rest, you want the room to be very dark. So tamas, we can say, is like that blackout curtain. So that needs to be removed. What is the question of going outside or experiencing the outside if that blackout curtain is there? So tamas is like that. Then we can say, now let's say you remove that, and maybe there's one more sheer curtain. You could sort of see a little bit outside, but it's still not giving you the full experience. So you remove that also. Or maybe the window is a little bit dusty. So you clean that. So that's maybe we can say like rajas. It's just a simple analogy. Now you have a perfectly clean window. The glass is sparkling. It's like completely transparent. So wonderful. I can see everything outside. It's as if I'm outside. But are you outside? No, you're still inside. You're still looking through a mirror. A window. You're still mediating through a lens. So sattva may give us a window into transcendence. It may give us the best window into transcendence. It does give us the best window into transcendence, the clearest picture, but it's not transcendence itself. Transcendence will only happen when, in this analogy, when we're actually outside, when we've gone outside of the limitations of this artificial house that we're trapped in. Does that analogy make sense? So I'm a little worried because I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking of this argument. I think Srila Prabhupada makes this very clear in this purport, is that no, as devotees, we need to take mode of goodness very seriously. And that actually it is by cultivating the mode of goodness that we can understand Krishna, we can understand our relationship with Krishna. And as Srila Prabhupada says, all the obstacles on the path of understanding Krishna can be removed. Why should devotees care about the mode of goodness? Why must the devotees care about the mode of goodness? Your silence is worrisome. Prabhu, please rescue.
I read a pastime in My Glorious Master by His Grace Bhuri Jan Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
So there he uh, places this query before Srila Prabhupada. He says, Prabhupada, are devotees transcendental? Then what about mode of goodness? Prabhupada said they're transcendental, but they act in mode of goodness. Just like the operative mode for a devotee is mode of goodness. And what I could make it, and his subtle thinking, his way of thinking is transcendental. Mode of operation is mode of goodness.
It's a great. it's a great way of putting it, right? Um, in other words, while we are embodied beings, while we're in this world of Prakriti, you have to operate. You have to have some kind of operating system. So on that level, we have to operate. So let us operate in the mode of goodness, right? So I like this distinction between the devotee is transcendental, but the devotee's actions still have to fit into somewhere in this. Yes, beautiful point.
I just remember what Prabhupada said. When we follow four regulative principles, you are immediately brought to the mode of goodness. And when we chant, it takes you to the transcendental mode. So you need to come to the mode of goodness to rise to transcend. That can happen when you are chanting. This is what Prabhupada says.
So both are necessary,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, God, goodness is, unless you come to goodness, how can you chant properly?
Mm. So ultimately, our aspiration is the transcendental, but how can we actually approach transcendental activities? When we're chanting, we're actually in contact with Krishna. If we're chanting offenselessly, even mixed chanting is so powerful, right? Even that namabhas is so powerful. What to speak of the pure Shuddhanam? But how can we ever even hope to have that experience of chanting if we're not coming to that level? So we're at least sincerely endeavoring to be free of offense. It's not such an easy thing, but at least at the very least, to be able to approach it from the mode of goodness. And this is also a sort of a related point that, right, this is a constant tension. We talk about it during Damodar Lila also between the grace of Krishna and our efforts. So in a similar way, my reflection is, especially hearing the point that you made, Adhikesha Prabhu, that where is the place of our effort? So our effort is not just, when we pick up the beads and start chanting. Our effort is everything that comes before that also. What have we done to prepare ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, right? And mode of goodness is necessary for that. Now, we're not saying that bhakti is dependent on the mode of goodness. That's another thing. Like we were a couple of days ago, Nityananda Prabhu gave this beautiful class talking about the causeless nature of bhakti and how in our tradition, right, bhakti is not dependent on gyan or vairagya. So I would say in a similar light, right, bhakti is not dependent on the cultivation of sattva gun. And there are exceptional cases where we see that bhakti is able to act very powerfully even in the absence of sattva gun. But for most of us, our effort can be in creating the most favorable environment to show, one, to reciprocate with Krishna's kindness and not take his mercy for granted. And two, similar point, but how are we going to show Krishna our seriousness, our sincerity, right? In a very tangible, Krishna knows our heart, but in a very tangible way. Okay, Krishna, I'm just like we willingly accept some austerity. That's also like we intentionally cultivate mode of goodness, sattva. Other arguments for the cultivation of sattva gun for devotees.
Hare Krishna. Actually, usually there is a saying in Hindi, "Kaise sang vaise rang." You know,
Say it again, please.
uh, it's a Hindi saying,
Yes.
"Kaise sang vaise rang."
Hmm.
No, you can say vice versa. The color which you associate, you'll become that color.
Right.
That's why actually the same point is already mentioned. Where we put ourselves, we will imbibe that type of mode. Either we put ourselves in sattva, we will imbibe that type of mood. And if we put ourselves in rajo, if we put ourselves in tamo, we will imbibe that type of mood. That's
Yeah.
why we try to put ourselves in the mode of goodness. Then we can imbibe that mode and we can practice and we can establish in Suddha Sattva.
Yeah.
Every day Maharaj comes in for the tour in the morning hours,
Mm.
and for externally, if we see, is so much passion. He wanted to do this, he wanted to do that, he wanted to do. He's so much is into it. And morning and evening he comes and sees, and but externally, if you see, he has so much patience to do it. But if he, when Maharaj explains those things, he sees everything in spiritual way, in transcendental way. The person, previously also we discussed. Sometimes sattva also look like tamoguna,
Yeah.
but he's also in so much patience, and but it's always is in mode of transcendental.
Yeah. Thank you. This reminds me, there's also, right, again, going back to this, we need operating systems. We're in Prakriti, whether we like it or not. We're not Prakriti, we're Purusha, according to Vedantic philosophy or yoga philosophy. We're Atma, we're pure spirit soul, we're Purusha, but we're enmeshed in Prakriti right now. So it will have an effect. We will be colored. So do we want to just be colored by anything and everything and be like a ping pong ball going back and forth between the different gunas? Or do we want to be intentional and cultivate what do I want my rang to be when I go before Krishna? Ultimately, I'm not that rang. I'm not that color. But if I have to have something, let me be intentional. How do I want to show up to Krishna? The other thing is there will be mix. There will always be mix. Even in devotional life, can we honestly say there's not passion? Of course there's passion. And can we honestly say it's only purely for all of us? At least let me speak for myself. I can't say, even if I'm passionate about some service, that it's purely a haituki apratihata, right? It's maybe a little bit. There will be some rajas, there will be some tamas, but sattva is needed to regulate rajas and tamas as well. So here, the Lord as Hayagriva kills Madhu and Kaitaba. We may not be able to kill our rajas and tamas necessarily, but that sattva can keep it regulated. So even if we need to dip into a little bit of a more passionate time in our life or even activity, okay. Even if we all need tamas, without tamas, we wouldn't be able to sleep. We wouldn't be able to rest. Everyone needs tamas as long as you're an embodied being. But let that tamas be guided by sattva also. So we need something to guide. Other arguments for the mode of goodness, theological arguments, historical arguments. Actually, here first, and then we'll. Yes. No, Mataji, please go. Hmm.
Few days ago, Naveen Neerat Prabhu said, our movement is full of very pure and very socially awkward people. And that can happen if we do not follow the simple rules and regulations. Sometimes devotees may feel, I'm transcendental, so I don't need to follow rules, like stealing flowers from people's backyards or for puja, and which I have done once. And so things like that, we need to follow rules and regulations, and that can be done in mode of goodness, not thinking that Krishna stole butter, so I can do it too.
Yeah.
In general, and that then common people can relate to us and trust us and come to us.
So two things. In the interest of time, let me just pull out two things. One, point that Mataji's making, really nice point, that if we want to be, even going back to the preachers, so if we want to make an impact on the larger society, then we have to be able to relate to the larger society and they need to relate to us. And who is the most relatable, attractive people? Actually, if you analyze it, mode of goodness is so compelling. Even as aspiring devotees, have you ever met someone who's just so, you can just almost immediately tell they're so situated in sattva gun. They just have, as we say in America, they have their stuff together. so well that you're just like automatically attracted. You just want to like, you're like, wow, that's a quality person. So we should be that kind of quality people that others can relate to. But if we're in the name of transcendence, no one can relate to us. They think we're weird. They think we're, you know, so that's one. Then related point, morality. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding. That's a whole other class. But sometimes there's a misunderstanding that being transcendental means being immoral or amoral. You know, this word amoral means like morality doesn't even matter. Or immoral means going against the rules of morality. But actually, if we understand what does transcendental mean, transcendental to mundane morality means morality is such a like we've got that down so well that now we can go even beyond that. So transcendental doesn't mean skipping it, it means going beyond it. Does that make sense? You see the distinction? We should be, in one sense, the most moral, and then we should show through our words and our example in so many ways that even beyond morality, there's something even higher. But you don't get to show that by skipping and being immoral or amoral. So excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Excellent points. I was kind of teasing at it, but our history, unfortunately, we learn things. Of course, it's all Krishna's arrangement for us to learn and grow, and everyone goes through it. But in the history of our movement, for those especially who have been around a little bit longer, in the name of artificial transcendence, premature transcendence, how much damage can be done? In the name of not worrying about mode of goodness, what is the quality of Vaishnav Sangha, Vaishnav relationships? How Rajas and Tamas sets in, even in the name of transcendence. How many big leaders, big devotees, of course, we appreciate everything that they did and their sincerity, but how many big projects, big leaders, big this, big that, were all finished? And so much could have been prevented in one sense if there's a culture of mode of goodness and then build from there. There's a analogy that's sometimes used that mode of goodness, you can think about mode of goodness like the runway. You've heard this analogy maybe? That like if you think about our bhakti as like a plane that's taking off. So you can think of sattva gun as like that runway. So when you go in a plane, right? Sometimes even you have to wait in the plane. Have you ever had this? You're delayed, you're waiting. You're there, everything's ready, but the runway is not ready. So you might think very like a child might think, well, who cares? Why can't we just go straight in the sky? No, no, we need the runway so that there can be a safe takeoff and safe landing. So that runway we can analogize as like sattvagun. No one goes to the airport, no one buys a ticket, an airplane ticket, and gets excited. Oh, I heard Mumbai has a really good runway. I can't wait. But everyone knows the runway is necessary to go on their journey, right? So similarly, if we're even serious about transcendence, okay, then let's be careful and safe and make sure we have a good runway for our flight to take off smoothly. Sometimes there's a bumpy takeoff or something. No, let's have that as smooth as possible. Of course, we're not in control, but at least to the extent that we have some, that our efforts make a difference, let's try to make the smoothest runway possible. Now, there's another mode of transportation known as a helicopter. And helicopters don't use runways. And helicopters are especially used in what kind of situations? Emergency situations. This is, by the way, this is an analogy that Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is mainly the author of this analogy. We just had a conversation about it, so I want to give him credit. So also in an emergency situation, okay, maybe there's like the helicopter model where we don't need a runway. The helicopter just lands, takes off immediately. So we can think about those emergency situations. Actually, in the beginning years of the movement, Srila Prabhupada was very much in emergency mode. If you're familiar with the history, right, coming to the West, seeing people, what to speak of, I mean, we won't even get into. I'll tell one short not even story, but I'll just make one reference. So I got connected to Krishna consciousness through a place called New Vrindavan. And New Vrindavan has a very colorful history in ISKCON from its earliest days. And in the early days, there was a belief that in ISKCON, if anyone wanted to join, but they were a little too crazy or a little too like disturbed or the temple in the city didn't know what to do with them, they would say, send them to the farm. They would send them to New Vrindavan, and New Vrindavan would just take everyone. So there were people that were showing up to New Vrindavan. I know I won't say his name. There was one devotee who, when he came to New Vrindavan, he was in what's called a catatonic state. Do you know what a catatonic state is? It's like practically unconscious. He was like a stone. He wasn't speaking properly. He was just soiling his clothes. Somehow he had some attraction to Krishna. And actually, he's still practicing Krishna consciousness today. Of course, and the reason he was in that state was a lot of drug use and different things like that. He was actually amazingly kind of healed and rehabilitated, and he's still serving to this day. So many years later, he's still so sharp. Everything is there. But these were the kinds of people. Sometimes we romanticize it when we think of, oh, Prabhupada came to America and there was these hippies, but they were really kind of cool and nice. And there weren't so many nice people, but it was also a struggle. We can only imagine for someone coming from Prabhupada's background. And he had that urgency. He didn't know he already had heart attack on the way. He could go at any time. Krishna could take him at any time. So in that state, that was very much a helicopter kind of thing. And so the emphasis so much wasn't on establishing mode of goodness. But if you look at later, as the movement was growing, what does Prabhupada say? And in purports like this, what is Prabhupada saying? The need to cultivate the mode of goodness. Finally, I'll just add, I'm already over time, so forgive me. But I'll just add that for devotees, we can also think in this way, if it's helpful, that our interest is not in cultivating the mode of goodness. That's not our ultimate aim. That's not our objective. In and of itself, that's not necessarily what we want to do. But we want to do whatever is, what is that? What is favorable to Krishna. We want to accept what is favorable and avoid that which is unfavorable. So in this mindset, we can think, what would be most pleasing to Krishna? In anything we do. It doesn't come so easy. At least for me, I have to keep working on it. But if I can just remember to ask myself in any situation, okay, what would be most pleasing to Krishna right now? You know what happens when you ask that question over and over again? Whenever you have a choice, whenever you have some situation in life, what starts to happen is almost always, almost invariably, I won't say always, helicopters example is always there, but almost always the answer to that question will situate you in the mode of goodness. Because almost always, what is going to be most pleasing to Krishna, most pleasing to Guru, most pleasing to Vaishnavas is going to be Sattva Gun. It's the nature of Sattva Gun. So in that sense, our objective is to please Krishna. If it pleases you, my Lord, to cultivate mode of goodness, I'll cultivate mode of goodness. Not because I'm trying to be the biggest moralist or I think Sattva Gun will give me ultimate happiness or transcendence, but Krishna, if it pleases you, full stop. I don't need anything else. That settles it for me. Okay, I'll stop there. I'm 4 minutes over time. So I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask for question and answer. And we had some interaction. But maybe if very quickly, if there's any final.
I'm just taking this opportunity because you are giving the class and there are a lot of our school students attending. I asked Shivanand Shyam Prabhu, was he introduced? So I'm taking the liberty to,
No time, Prabhu.
especially for the students who are here,
No time.
9th, 10th. What age was it like when you joined New Vrindavan? I mean, this is to inspire the children. What was your age?
Boo.
I mean, don't be humble. Just say, what was your age? 10?
No, 13. 12 or
So at
13.
the age of 13 years, and after that, he was a regular, he used to write for Back to Godhead magazine. His column will come. So his name that time was Vineet Chandar. And today, so he has grown up from all those teenage years, and now he's a householder, and he's Venkata Bhat, and he's like in the universities, is teaching the subject religious studies in USA. So he's seen as a, so it's a very amazing example for students who are here looking up, what should I become? So here is one example of how he has gone in this direction and is creating a big impact in the youth. But I should I ask one question what related to what we had? Just one with the, just unless you have to go somewhere.
I'm okay.
Yeah, no, we had a debate just few days back, and the children now they will become very attentive. Cleanliness is next to godliness.
Hmm.
And someone there are two groups. One had to speak for it. That is very easy, right? But someone spoke against it,
Hmm.
and he's here. So he said that it's a waste of time to be in the mode of goodness. You can use that time to make more money.
Hmm.
Of course, he doesn't believe in that, but just to bring that. So you are from US. So let them also hear. Now, Western world is known for cleanliness, external. Yeah, the streets, the malls, the cars and all. But then what was brought out is that they are not very clean. I'm not generalizing, but they have to rush to the office. They don't take bath, just put perfume and just go and attend. So this boy is saying, see, because work is more important. You have to go to the office early. Why waste time in taking bath and cleaning and just put perfume? Go and earn money. So what is your call for that?
I mean, it's a pretty compelling argument, and I'm not so wealthy, so maybe I no. Yeah. So there's so many ways of answering, I think, but I would just say, as in my little experience, the people that I've at least encountered that are truly successful, almost all of them, if you notice, and if people are interested, if whoever, I'm not going to ask that person to volunteer, but whoever's here who made that argument, that it's actually a very good argument. But I would say, if you're interested, study like who are the entrepreneurs, who are the leaders, who are the really like wealthy people. Look at like, you know, the Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and all these kinds of people. I'm not saying they're necessarily mode of goodness in terms of everything. Um, People have very strong opinions about Elon Musk now. But at least if you look at just from a strategic point of view, just on this point of the cleanliness and how they approach their work, it's not necessarily that they're ignoring things like cleanliness. Actually, many of them are really have very you can say commendable discipline when it comes to those types of things also. So to be a sustained success, so the nature, going back to the modes, the nature of rajas. So if you want to be rich, if you want to be wealthy in a more rajasic sense, okay, maybe you can cut some corners but the nature of rajas is it's very flickering. It's very chanchal. But the nature of sattva is it's more long term, sustained. So even in a material sense, of course, we're talking material example now. Even in a material sense, I think one could make the argument if you want to be truly successful in work, in making money and having prestige and all of these things, and you want it to last, better figure out a way to bring in some sattva there because otherwise it's not going to last. It's going to be very flickering. You may get into the office a little bit quicker than the next guy, but what's going to happen when eventually someone says, "Hey, this guy needs to take a shower." I don't know. That's not necessarily the best example, but you get the point, right? You look at bigger picture. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I wanted to know the difference between material mode of goodness and the Vishuddha Sattva which you mentioned. So what is the difference between?
So my understanding, again, it's a big subject, but my understanding is that Vishuddha Sattva, that is that is just outside of Prakriti. That's not material. Because at that point, right, and Prabhuji, you can please weigh in. We have wonderful scholars here. Um, at that point, you're no longer operating within the material realm. Although we're seemingly performing material activities, but just like we say, right, like um, bhakti is akarma, means it's outside of the realm of karma. There's karma, vikarma, akarma. So if we're actually now, that becomes a question: is it actually like that, or is it still a little mixed? But if at least in that pure sense, although there's activity within the material world, it's still not governed by the material world because it's at that point it's completely handed over to Krishna. So that Vishuddha Sattva, my understanding is Vishuddha Sattva is outside of Prakriti. Sattva, what you're calling material mode of goodness, is still within the category of Prakriti. It's still within the world of Maya. But for practical purposes, because I'm hearing maybe in your question there's a practical dimension. For practical purposes, very subtle. So how will we know? How will we be able to tell? It's not like some alarm will go off or someone will tell us, "Hey, Prabhu, you've now crossed over. Welcome," right? Like you cross a border, and then the new country says, "Welcome to the." It's not like so clear that, "Oh, welcome to Vishuddha Sattva. Now you're in Vishuddha Sattva." So again, my humble, perhaps speculation or reflection on this is for us as conditioned, aspiring bhaktas, sadhakas, for us, the more we cultivate sattva, whether we think of it as material or not, okay, we cultivate sattva, and we depend on the grace of Krishna, and that combination, you know, exactly how it happens, where it happens, when it happens, I don't know, but it's possible then to touch on Vishuddha Sattva, or at least get a glimpse of it. Is that fair?
This question because you mentioned Sattva is more of complaisance zone, but Vishuddha Sattva is not like that, right? So on that aspect, I was asking. Like,
I see. Yeah, no, I think the danger of sattva is that it's complacency. But it's not that sattva always means being complacent. It's just that's something we need to watch out for. So maybe I can say, the more we're watching out for that and keeping our aim, right? Keeping like that beautiful story of Dronacharya asking all of his students, and only Arjun was the only thing he saw was the eye of that bird, right? Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. So keeping our focus is very necessary. Keeping our focus, our goal, our aspiration, is transcendence, not settling for anything else. Is Krishna, is going back to Godhead, is serving Krishna, is pleasing Krishna, is samsiddhir haritoshanam. That's there. And then along the way, sattva as much as possible. Sattva gun, sattva gun, sattva gun. Then we have faith. It's not our doing, but we have faith that it'll become. We'll hit that point of Vishuddha Sattva, because then we're not being complacent, right? We're keeping focus. Does that help? Thank you. Okay, maybe we can. Oh, Nityananda, yes.
Wonderful presentation. The difficult topic, you took it, edited it so nicely, wonderfully proved. I was just thinking in my mind when you asked the question why we should cultivate Sattva. I just thought in my mind, yeah, it's pleasing to Krishna, and I was quite happy that I was able to think similar to you.
But see, the difference is that's the first thought that comes into your mind. But for me, it takes a long time to get to that question of what is pleasing to Krishna. Anyway, thank
And
you.
I was wondering the way Krishna created the system is that anything a person do, first thing is that he has to have understanding. jnana ichha kriti we say.
Mm,
First jnana, then desire comes.
yes.
Even children's also, first they have understanding. The gulab jamun is sweet, Then after understanding eaten once, then they develop a desire. Oh, next time it's a gulab jamun or karela sabji, they'll go for gulab jamun because they know this is sweet. The desire comes. Then the action, they'll extend the hand or do something. Get that sweet. So before the action comes desire. Before the desire comes understanding. That's how Krishna have created this system. So similarly, tattva jnana to moksha labha. That first a person should have tattva jnana, then he can get liberated from this world. So whatever is helping a person to get a proper understanding, from there only things starts.
Yeah.
As the boy's question that why I should think about goodness, I can just put perfume and go, But things like that, anything in this world, like for example, rajasic is demons. So when they act very heavily, they can't maintain that happiness derived from that also. Like Ravana, he lost everything. Eventually, the demons lose. Even the drunkard, he may be considering that he is very happy, but he can't, last for long. He will get sick also. So in that sense, that to maintain the happiness, you need to have a sattva guna. But say, okay, we are glorifying sattva guna. Let there be only sattva guna in this world. Let us forget about rajas and tamas. But that also doesn't work because sattva brings you knowledge, understanding, and deeper vision. But the execution part, you need to have a rajas also. So
Yeah.
that's why Krishna made this varnashrama system where the brahmanas are kshatriyas, vaishyas, shudras. Only brahmanas are there. Means nowadays, the India, the pride of brahminical culture. We are brahmins. The rest is shudras. There is no kshatriya, vaishya. Also, they consider like that. But then the society cannot function. So you need to have a brahmanas, and the brahmanas like a head. So you may pull on for some time without hands or legs with the head, but it is not very smooth. So, but without head, things cannot function. So Krishna, that's why he says that the respect to the brahmanas and Krishna himself, that brahmanas should be worshipped. So because the head is an important thing, the example also Prabhupada gives. So in that sense, Krishna is pleased with the brahmanas because they are guiding the rajas and tamas. Without that, rajas tamas cannot independently function.
Yes.
But sattva can independently function, but it won't be smooth. So in that sense, it's like a king of the rajas and tamas, and that helps us. You very beautifully said the runway. It takes the flight off.
Yes.
So it helps a lot. Unless of course Krishna is not depending, Bhakti is not depending on sattva, rajas, tamas. It's a helicopter, but generally Krishna's arrangement is like that, and Krishna is pleased when we follow his arrangement. So it's very wonderful, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing us back to this, this point of understanding. Excuse me. Because again, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes this, right? It's not that sattva gun, it's not that Krishna is dependent on our sattva gun. Krishna can appear in our lives, but what will put us in the best possible position of that understanding to even know what is our aspiration? What should we, like in that beautiful example that you gave, right? How do we even know what to aspire towards? We need to have understanding, clear understanding. That clarity, that understanding comes largely from Sattva Gun. So thank you so much. Thank you all so much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, God Premanandi.